Good morning, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving and welcome to another episode of FPC NFL Sunday. That's right. It's November the 28th. We are wrapping up the month of November. I think we're all recovering from our delicious Thanksgiving meals if you live in the United States. I know we have some followers and some fans and some employees that work in the Great White North, and I know Thanksgiving for them was a few weeks ago. So happy belated Thanksgiving to them. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone in the United States who celebrated, and happy Thanksgiving to you too. How are you doing today? You feeling pretty good? You're a little bye-week sluggish there, Braden. What's going on?
Yeah, it's been a really long week. I feel like there's just been like 3 days crammed into one, just through the last 2, 3 days of football. So, really excited to see what happens today with kind of a carefree day as far as the Chief stuff is concerned. So, definitely going to be rooting for certain teams I'm not used to rooting for.
How are we doing today, Ricky?
Probably not as good as Jim Harbaugh's feeling after yesterday, but besides that, I mean, hopefully we get a better day's action today than opposed to Thanksgiving, which had a great game and two games. We probably wish we were eating food or eating more dessert and maybe fell asleep during.
Yeah, I was going to say Jim Harbaugh is definitely going out and buying some new khakis today. You know, that's a reason, cause for celebration. But yeah, look, I mean, Ricky, you mentioned it last week when we talked about it. I wrote it in a brief little Thanksgiving turkey column published on Thanksgiving. It's time to get rid of the Lions. I'm done with it. Like I'm so like, and I told you this before we got on the air. The comparisons to my views on turkey on Thanksgiving are it's so it's hard not to mistaken the two for the same thing because, well, first of all, the only good turkeys, as we know, come in bowling, and this isn't bowling. So I think you can consider the Lions a turkey in that sense. You're conditioned to watch and want to see the Lions on Thanksgiving because of tradition, just like turkey. It's time to get rid of both. All right. Let's actually put some quality, high intensity, high stakes type games on Thanksgiving. We're often left with kind of like what we got this week, where essentially one game turns out to be actually meaningful in the standings, actually meaningful and entertaining on the football field. Because again, you know the Lions are going to get a game, and you know the Lions are going to be bad. You know why you know the Lions are going to be bad? Because they've been bad for 50 friggin' years. So it's time to get rid of them. I'm so sick of seeing the Lions on Thanksgiving, and it just starts the day off so poorly too. 12:30, it's like, all right, you get football a half an hour early, normal, on East Coast time, of course. But then it's like, oh wait, it's the Lions and it's the Bears. Mostly, it's just the Lions. So I'm with you. I think we all agree that it's time to say bon voyage to the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving, and yeah, I'm good with that. Agreed. No disagreements here. I can't imagine, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even really watch a whole lot. I kind of was in and out of it, doing some other stuff. So I actually watched most of this after the fact on the highlights more than anything. So I think I made the right decision.
Yeah, it must have been a very short clip, about 30 seconds to get all those highlights in. No, look, I mean, we got some, obviously the nightcap or the overtime game, smack dab in the middle was fun and exciting. Although, personally as a fan, I had no personal stakes in it because it didn't really mean much for either the Patriots or Tom Brady, and those are the two things I follow as a quote unquote fan. So I was sitting there saying, oh, this is a great game. This is fun. It was kind of back and forth, but 28 penalties. It made it painful to watch. Like a game that ends 36-33 in overtime shouldn't be painful to watch, but it was because of the penalties. So even the best, most entertaining game of that trio was marred by just an absurd number of yellow flags. And again, it was just like, all right, well, at least I'm eating food at this point, because that was about the time I started eating dinner, or maybe that was seconds. I don't remember. It's kind of a blur, but yeah, I think Thanksgiving you should really. I mean, imagine if you had, and you can kind of anticipate this a little bit better than what the NFL has done in the past, but you can anticipate matchups that are going to be meaningful at this time of the year, because that's the best part. Is like, this isn't, the beginning of the season. This isn't, just out of the exhibition game. These are games that actually matter. So you could actually put together a solid 3-game slate, or at least anticipate a pretty solid 3-game slate for Thanksgiving that I think would be fantastic. But we're not here to rail on Thanksgiving and the games that were presented to us, because we've moved on. That's a thing of the past. We're looking towards Sunday, and we're also looking towards the future. So before we completely close the book on Thanksgiving, we're going to have one more link to that, and I'm going to ask you guys the question, which might have seemed obvious last week when reports came out that Matt Nagy was coaching his last game on Thursday, but he has yet to be fired. So I'm assuming maybe those reports weren't quite accurate. Which one of these coaches, I'm going to ask both of you guys, which one of these coaches do you think gets the axe first? Do they both go in the offseason or at some point during this season? And that is the aforementioned Matt Nagy of the Chicago Bears and Mr. Joe Judge in New York with the football Giants. And I'll start with you, Ricky. Who do you think's getting the axe first, Nagy or Judge? Because I don't think either of us or any of us think they're making it to another season.
Well, I think with Matt Nagy, it's more of he has to thank Dan Campbell for not realizing you can't call timeouts consecutively. Otherwise, he might not have a job after today. But I think it's him largely because it's just easy to get a new coach to replace Justin Fields. It's not easy with the Giants to get rid of Joe Judge because it looks like they're going to get rid of Dave Gettleman. It looks like they're going to need a new general manager. And I don't think John Mara wants to change head coaches so quickly. I think he has the fascination with Judge because Belichick recommended him to him. And I don't think this team is willing to go outside the organization. Like, I think the Giants should hire Louis Riddick for GM because he's been around the division. He knows the draft. He's outside the organization. He's the perfect fit for them. And I feel like they're going to mess it up and hire somebody internally, and somebody internally is going to keep Joe Judge. And it just seems like the Giants are going to limit their pool to, hey, you want the GM job, you have to keep him. And they fired McAdoo after 2 years. They fired Shermer after 2 years. I don't think they're going to fire Judge after 2 years. As much as I think he's at fault, because he's starting to sound like Belichick minus the wins.
You need those wins to be like Belichick.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think Gettleman's probably the more likely one, even with McAdoo and Shermer. Excuse me. The Giants have kind of historically been a team that doesn't want to make changes too quickly. So I kind of see that playing out with Joe Judge, and especially with kind of the moves they made to kind of surround Daniel Jones with the offense, with the weapons they have there. I think try to.
Oh, we lost Brady. We lost Brady there for a second. There we go. We got him back. We left us.
Sorry. But yeah, with Chicago, I think it's a little bit easier transition just because the best he's kind of done, Nagy in Chicago, has kind of been 500, and it's just gotten worse and worse. And I just don't think you can kind of see it going up anytime soon.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we're all going to kind of agree on the same thing here. I think the existence of Gettleman in New York and probably his seniority when it comes to the firing list, I think he's kind of moved his way up to the top as the next guy to get the axe in this situation. That might save Joe Judge's job, but kind of to your point, Ricky, and I'm glad you brought it up, was like they're since they got rid of Tom Coughlin. And, this is how crazy it is. You think Tom Coughlin was in New York for, 13, 14 seasons? They get rid of him. And, again, every 2 years they're replacing a head coach. And they really haven't gone anywhere, in the sense they haven't made any progress forward. They're still treading water exactly where they were, essentially, when they got rid of Tom Coughlin. So, it's going to be interesting to see how it ultimately plays out. I think the more likely... certainly the more likely guy to get fired in season would be Matt Nagy. I think at the very least, Joe Judge makes it through the end of the season. I still think there's a good chance that he may get the axe here. So the great thing about this season and or at least this time of the year, and I gotta pull up our nice little graphic here, our nice little what's it called? A little standings graphic so we can all get a visual here on the screen. But the great part about this time of year is that we have many teams that are just we're starting to see kind of the contenders, the teams that we're seeing start to kind of separate themselves into that upper echelon. But that wild card and those 4, 5, 6, and 7 seeds is a logjam of a lot of teams. Some good, some bad, some better than their record, some worse than the record. So we're going to kind of suss through that and do a little buy or sell here. So I'm going to obviously bring up the standings here so we can get a nice glimpse of it. People on watching on Full Press NFL on Twitter can check it out as well. There you go. The American Football Conference. That's right. The AFC. You can see there. Oops. Oh, I didn't zoom in on this one. Oh, sorry, folks. Sorry if I had to make you squint there, but that's the NFC there. Here we go. So we got about 10 teams here, and I'm pulling up my list now, that have either 5 or 6 losses. So they're all kind of hovering around 500. Some of them right at 500. Some of them a game above. Some of them a game below. But there's a lot of interesting teams on this list, and we're going to start with the one that's going up against the defending Super Bowl champions, and that's the Indianapolis Colts, who all of a sudden, after starting 0-3, are now 6-5. They're on, Carson Wentz is playing some pretty good football. He only has 3 interceptions this season, which, if you would have asked me going into the year if that was the case, I'd be like, well, would he play one game? No, he's played really well, and he's limiting the turnovers, which is key for him. And obviously Jonathan Taylor is running right into the MVP race. So the Colts right now sitting at 6-5. They're 2 games outside of Tennessee, but the problem is they've lost twice to Tennessee already this season. So that's going to be a very tough hill to climb. But after this week, if they win and Tennessee loses, it does become a little bit more realistic for them. But however, at 6-5, the Indianapolis Colts, I'll start with you, Ricky, and I'll go to you, Braden, afterwards. Are you buying or selling this team as a legitimate playoff contender?
I'm buying them just because how do you not buy Jonathan Taylor the way he was able to just steamroll the Bills last week, basically single-handedly. Their defense is able to make plays, especially their front 7. And you said Wentz has been able to somehow avoid turning the ball over. Really, one of those 3 picks is that awful one against Tennessee. So he really should only have 2 picks on the season. The question, though, for the Colts is, what's the path to the 6-17 in the AFC? Is it 10 wins? I would say. You've got the Colts have Houston and Jacksonville, so it's 8. So they have to find a way to win 2 of the other 4 between Tampa, New England, Arizona, and Vegas. Not an easy stretch to win 2. I'll buy them, but they probably have a tougher last 6 than a lot of these other teams we'll talk about have.
Yeah, I'm also buying them. I think when you look at just kind of the way they can compete, I think in different situations, so whether it's colder weather with Jonathan Taylor or kind of bracketing and taking away the pass on defense, I think Darius Leonard is probably the best pass coverage linebacker in the league. So I think they have just so many different answers that they can kind of alter their game plan around. And like you said with Carson Wentz, the turnovers I'm really surprised have been that low all season. And he's really kind of making a lot of good decisions right now, not really playing the hero ball we saw in Philadelphia. So I would also buy the Colts.
We're going to stick in the AFC, and we're going to go to the AFC West and go to the Las Vegas Raiders, who picked up a win, that big overtime win on Thanksgiving. This is a team that's gone through quite a bit of ups and downs, both on and off the field, with coaches, players. They got spanked by the Chiefs just a couple weeks ago, but then came out and beat what I think everyone believes is a pretty good Dallas Cowboys team. Are you buying or selling the Raiders? And again, I'll start with you, Ricky.
I think after that Dallas game, how do you not buy them, especially the way they were able to win that game basically without Darren Waller? I mean, he only played a quarter, and you had Hunter Renfrow step up, Zay Jones stepped up, had a Deshaun Jackson sighting of all things. I think for Vegas, it's more just finding an identity with Josh Jacobs, and he did have 22 carries on Thanksgiving, so that helps. Their defense was better early in the year. It's not now. But considering all they've gone through this year, and they're still in this race, and Carr is playing on a great level. I know Anthony Brown helped them on that 3rd and 18, but they were still able to get the ball down the field. And even just after Dallas ties the game in regulation, for Carr to go down the field before the game time field to get him to the 56-yarder for Carlson was impressive. So after beating a perceived Super Bowl contender in Dallas, and I still think they are, I think you have to at least buy Vegas for a couple more weeks.
Oh man, I really don't know. I guess I would have to say I'm selling just because I think that there's still I think there's still too many spots on this team right now that I think are so inexperienced. I just don't think they're a deep enough team when you look at the receiver core. Even with Deshaun Jackson coming in, I think there's a lot that Derek Carr is going to have to do on his own. And putting my trust in Carr, that's pretty difficult to do right now. Even as good as he was to begin the season, one of the best deep ball passers. I just can't quite see it finishing now as strong, so I'm going to go sell.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Braden on here just because, again, the previous couple weeks were very unawe-inspiring from the Raiders. And, it makes me just kind of feel like this is just a team that it's been the last decade plus. And it's a team that has its moments, but ultimately is just not good enough to compete. So I'm going to sell on them. So sticking in the AFC, and by looking at the standings, you can kind of guess the next group of teams all come from the same division, and that's the AFC North. So you have the Cincinnati Bengals, and we're going to start with them because I think they might be the most intriguing team, maybe the highest ceiling team of all three of them. But we're looking at the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Browns right now. Bengals are with 6 wins, Steelers with 5 wins, Browns with 6. And I'll start with you, Ricky, and we'll start with the Bengals. Buy or sell them as a playoff contender?
I'm going to sell the Bengals, at least as a contender, because I think you look at Cincinnati, and one thing I'm interested in, especially today, is they continue that identity they had against Vegas last week, where Joe Mixon got 30 carries and Joe Burrow only threw 30 passes. Like that's kind of the perfect formula you kind of wish Zach Taylor found earlier. But I think they're going to have too much of an over-reliance on Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. It's still hard to trust this Bengals team. Not so much past history, but just the way they played 3 of the last 4 weeks have not been great. They have a couple of huge games coming up. Now, they do get a lot of these games at home. Pittsburgh at home, Chargers at home, Chiefs at home, Ravens at home. So that'll help them. But are they ready for prime time? I think we have to see what happens.
Yeah, I think for those same reasons, I'm going to sell them. I really do want to buy them, but I think there's so many things kind of that we just have not seen before yet, whether that's Zach Taylor completing kind of a full season as, having a good set of plays that he's kind of dialing up for Joe Burrow in this offense, or I think the defense finishing as strong as they started the season. So I really do want to buy them, but for now, I think just because of the inexperience, I have to go with sell.
All right, next, the Steelers 5-4-1. Let's not forget that very delicious tie against the Lions. Another great example of why the Lions deserve to have more primetime football games. But buy or sell the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger, old guy, still kind of throwing it around, barely, but he is. Are they contenders or not?
I'm going to buy the Steelers. I think we learned a lot more about them in a loss last week than in a win, because you think about it, no Joe Hayden, no TJ Watt, no Minkah Fitzpatrick, and the Steelers team almost won in LA against the Chargers with Roethlisberger leading them back. Pat Frymuth's become a huge weapon in this offense, so it's going to help their passing game. As long as they can protect Roethlisberger, Najee Harris is going to run the ball. They're going to get these guys back on defense. Pittsburgh, I still feel, is that team. If you're one of these top 2 or 3 seeds in the AFC, you want to avoid, especially with Mike Tomlin and his coaching experience. So I'm going to buy the Steelers.
I'm also going to buy him. I was going to sell just because I think Roethlisberger still doesn't necessarily quite know his own limitations right now, but I think the way they're kind of using the offensive skill players around him, Najee's been getting true first-round value kind of carries and touches there. And I think, like you mentioned with Freiermuth, I think this is a guy that that's probably going to be one of the best tight ends down the stretch here. So, yeah, I think just with the Tomlin coaching and the players around Roethlisberger, I have to buy him.
And last but not least, in the AFC at least, the Browns at 6-5. Buy or sell them?
Since it's Baker, I'm going to sell. And I still do believe, and it's not an indictment on Baker Mayfield, he's not healthy. He shouldn't be playing. I know he went off on the fans this week. And look, when you try to play, this is what happens. To me, if I'm Stefanski tonight and I get down, if I'm trying to save my season, this is a game to save the season, and I get down 10 to 14 points, I'm putting Keenum in the game. Because if it's about winning this year, don't look at it as benching Baker. You're benching him and not playing him in the rest of his career. You need to try to win these games. You got your tackle back in Conklin, your running back in Kareem Hunt. And if Keenum gives you the best chance to win for the rest of the season, because Baker's got all these ailments and injuries all over the place, put Keenum in. But I think in this division, it's just hard to trust Cleveland. 2 games with the Ravens in the next 3 weeks. You got to sell.
Yeah, I'm also going to sell. I don't really have a lot to add because I agree with a lot of Ricky's talking points there, but I also think this is a team you really haven't seen them play a complete game or really string together much consistency all year. They've had a lot of games where against the Chargers, against some other teams where they scored a lot of points and still weren't able to pull it off. So I just think there's so much that they can't really get out of their own way in those bigger games.
All right, so we're going to kind of shift gears to the NFC here because we still have a few teams as well that are right in that mix. And we're going to start with the Philadelphia Eagles, who at 5-6 right now have been playing some pretty good football the last couple of weeks. They're kind of nipping at the heels of Dallas. I think we all believe Dallas is a better team, but we also know that Dallas has this innate ability to actually trip over their own feet, and there's still plenty of time in this season for them to do so. So, but outside of that, in a vacuum, are you buying this Eagles team and Jalen Hurts as a true contender?
I'm buying the schedule because I think you look at the Eagles with every team in the division and the Jets the rest of the way. It's hard to see them not winning at least 4 of these games, if not maybe 5. Because I think that Nick Sirianni finally realized, hey, there's a thing called running the ball. Mm-hmm. You're allowed to do it. And you don't have to do it with just your quarterback. Like, you're starting to see more Miles Sanders, more Boston Scott. Jordan Howard's out today, but he's done a good job. You wish they put Gainwell more in this offense, but the defense is playing well in the front 7. And they were able to dominate a Saints defense that usually is really good, not so much lately, but just the way the schedule is set up, Philly's in a great position.
Yeah, I'm also going to buy him just because I think Jalen Hurts is playing, I think, in a level that he can kind of control right now. I think there's some of that old Alabama and Oklahoma Hurts that we're seeing of just being able to kind of string together a lot of long drives and just wear down defenses. So I think when you add that and a very opportunistic defense that's starting to click all across the board, I think I have to buy him.
Next, we have a team coming off a pretty big win over the Green Bay Packers and the ailing toe of Aaron Rodgers. Minnesota Vikings 5-5. I think we all believe they're a pretty damn good team. Are you guys buying it or selling them?
I'm gonna buy the Vikings because actually it's weird to say, but you could buy Kirk Cousins. And I know it's Jefferson and Thielen, but he's been really good this season. He's not turned the ball over. He's not making mistakes. I think the one concern you have at Minnesota is their defensive line, especially with all the troubling things what went on with Everson Griffin this week. Mm-hmm. And you wonder injuries, especially at Minnesota. But I think especially they still get the Lions again, and they get Chicago twice. You've got to think they can win both those games against the Bears. Minnesota right now, compared to all these other NFC teams that are in the middle, I think they're in a good position. So I like the Vikings.
I'm also going to buy them. I think there's 2 things that they really have working for them. Cousins obviously is one, playing, really near an MVP level most of the year, but I think they're also kind of playing the way Zimmer wants them to, the back 7 on defense. I think he's finally got his guys after spending a lot of premium investments at the cornerback position. And I just think overall you look at Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, I think they've kind of been forgotten about a little bit more the last couple of years, but they're really starting to play like we saw them play a few years ago. So they're playing the way Zimmer wants, and Cousins is playing some of his best football. So I got to buy them.
All right, 2 more left. We got the 49ers also at 5-5 in a very, very competitive NFC West. Are you buying or selling Jimmy G in the 49ers?
I'm going to sell the 49ers. You got to sell on somebody in this NFC. And I know the Niners are likely they're going to back into the playoffs if they do. They get Seattle coming up to next week, and then they get the Texans at some point, Atlanta. So they have some decent games. I just don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think he's a guy you could, in order to win, you have to throw it 20 times. And I don't think that's exactly the best formula. They're getting Elijah Mitchell back today, but their running game could be a lot better other than using Deebo Samuel as your leading running back. I think you could maybe fix that a little bit, and largely because I don't trust Kyle Shanahan. So I'll sell the Niners.
Yeah, I'm also selling. I think some of their wins this year have kind of been fool's gold as far as just the way they've won. I think it's been more of just the teams kind of gifting them a lot of opportunities from mistakes, and I think there's a lot that Kyle Shanahan I think sometimes gets a little bit of a break when he shouldn't have. So I just don't trust them right now. I think there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered after the year for this team. So I got to sell.
All right, last team on the list at 5-6, the Carolina Panthers, with now Cam Newton, 1-1 since he returned to the team. He started last week and they lost. Are you buying or selling the Panthers as a NFC contender?
I'm selling, and it's not even the offense. I mean, I got to give Cam Newton credit. He's using Christian McCaffrey more. DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson actually look like they could do something in this offense, which is a good sign. But I was watching a lot of that game, and I was like, Carolina's in control, and somehow Washington won last week. Like, this defense should be in a much better position than what it is. And we talked about schedule, at least on my end. Buffalo, 2 games with Tampa, and Tampa looks like they're going to have to use everybody in those games because the NFC is so wide open for that 1 seed. This is the time you don't want to play Tom Brady twice in the last 3 weeks of the season. So just on that note, I don't think Carolina's going to make it, and I'm going to sell.
All right, so that does it for that. And you know what time it is? It's time for us to do our prop bet. So I'm going to pull them up as we speak because, of course, I don't have them ready to go. You know, I like to do things on the fly here and kind of push the limits of my preparedness here. But we have our prop bets, and then we're going to do our picks. So, of course, excuse me, if I can actually find the folder that has all this stuff in it, we could do this pretty well. Okay, there we go. There we go. There's a lot of things going on my computer screen right now, folks. You're just going to have to bear with me. I think I need maybe 2 or 3 more screens just to have individual windows dedicated, or individual screens dedicated to individual windows. So, all right. So here we are. We're going to get this fired up because I think we got a lot of good ones here this week because, hey, I think we honestly have a much better slate of games this afternoon than we did certainly on Thursday, but then we did last Sunday as well, because I felt like there was a lot of just meh, not a lot of implications, not a lot of scenarios that were intriguing to a broader NFL fan. So let's jump right into it. We're gonna talk Jalen Hurts versus the New York Giants. We already talked about Philly and how we all kind of agree that they are certainly a playoff contender. Big reason, Jalen Hurts. So over under passing yards for Jalen Hurts against the Giants, 269.5.
I'm gonna go under, but it's not exactly because of the Eagles, because of the Giants defense or anything like that. I think this Eagles game is going to be in a game where they can run the ball easier. And if they kind of can get the running game more involved, Jalen Hurts runs the ball maybe for close to 100 yards today. I think it's just more the way that the game plan is, where Hurts is going to go just a little bit under.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's going to be a lot of times in this game where Philly's just going to play conservative and kind of take it easy. A lot of long drives with the running back. So he has been hitting on some longer passes down the field once in a while with Devontae Smith, but I don't know if I see as much as those today. So got to go with the under.
All right, next we have Ryan Tannehill, Mac Jones, a very intriguing quarterback matchup at 1 o'clock today in New England. Ryan Tannehill, obviously we know, no Julio Jones, no A.J. Brown, no Derrick Henry. We already listed their star-studded wide receiver cast. Who do you trust to have more passing yards in this game, Tannehill or Mr. Rookie himself, Mac Jones?
I'm going to go Ryan Tannehill, and it's largely because of game script. I mean, I think all 3 of us are going to go play a skill position for the Titans today because they just don't have anybody. But nevertheless, even though they lost to the Texans last week, which I wish I bought into Ian's peer pressure when I jokingly was going to pick Houston to win last week. Even on a good day that Mac Jones had against the Browns, a couple weeks ago, he only threw for 198 yards. So the game plan is going to be run the ball, do what the Patriots usually do. Tannehill threw for 322 in a game where they scored 13 points and he threw 4 interceptions. Ryan Tannehill has to throw by design, therefore he would get the edge here.
I'm also going to go Tannehill, I think, just because, like you mentioned, game script, I think there's going to be a lot of garbage time throws kind of the middle of the field that we'll see him hit on late in the game. But yeah, I think Mac, you just kind of look at his average per game. He's hitting on the shorter passes and not necessarily having to always rely on the big play. So some of that in the game script, I think, will lead to Tannehill.
All right, next, another quarter. We got a lot of quarterback props on this one because there's a lot of intriguing matchups. Former Patriots signal caller, Mr. Tom Brady versus Carson Wentz. We talked about Carson a lot earlier. We're very impressed with him. But as many quarterbacks do, he will take second fiddle to his opponent today. Who has more passing yards? Is it Tom Brady or is it Carson Wentz?
I'm going to go Carson Wentz, and it's largely because I think Indianapolis, while they have Jonathan Taylor, they're facing one of the best run defenses in the NFL. So I think the game plan is going to be mainly to throw the ball. By the way, on a Colts note, watch the in-season Hard Knocks. It's really good. I was a critic of it. The idea, I do like it. But from the Bucs side, I think they want to get Leonard Fournette more involved this week. I don't think we've seen him a lot over the last couple of weeks, and still no Antonio Brown for Tampa today. I just think the way Indy's going to have to play themselves back in, Wentz is going to just out-edge Brady in passing yards.
I think it'll be close, but I'm actually going to go with Tom Brady just because I see kind of a lot of those deep passes hitting today. Mike Evans, I think, will have a few of them for sure. But, yeah, I think this is a game where Brady's going to kind of have some of those classic deep balls that just seem to be picture perfect. So, close one, I'll go Tom Brady.
Yeah, much like playing the Pittsburgh Steelers when he was a member of the Patriots. No matter how good the Steelers were, Tom just always had his way with them. I think you're going to see the same situation because certainly since Peyton Manning left, the Colts have not offered much of a resistance to a Tom Brady-led offense. So I'm going to go with Tom Brady on this one. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, he's leading the league in passing. So there's a good chance he's going to outthrow most people that he plays. And to kind of to Ricky, to your point, the fact that they're I think they're 26th in the league in rushing. They really don't have a good running game. So out of necessity, Tom Brady has to throw the ball a lot. And luckily for them, he's one of the few quarterbacks that actually puts up winning records consistently throwing over 40 times. It's just, to me, that makes me think, okay, he's probably going to have, I'm thinking close to a 400-yard game. Whether or not there's a lot of touchdowns, I don't know, but I think the yardage is going to be there. All right, we already did that one. We don't want to do this one. We already did that one. Okay, another quarterback one. I told you, there's a lot of them here. Baker Mayfield versus Lamar Jackson. Sunday Night Football. Who has more total yards?
Well, considering I don't think Baker Mayfield's going to finish tonight's game, I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. Coming back from the non-COVID illness, more refreshed, ready to go. Marquise Brown's going to be back, so that'll help them a lot. And I got to give the Ravens a lot of credit, by the way, too, winning that game with the backup quarterback, although Bears defense is terrible. I mean, that's still very impressive to do. So I'll take Lamar.
Yeah, I'm also going Lamar. I think this is going to be a classic Sunday night game for him, maybe somewhat similar to what we saw him do against Kansas City this year. I think just kind of take everything kind of in stride and kind of lead it kind of himself, put everybody on his back in a game that they kind of need after that Miami loss a couple of weeks ago. This is a big division game, so I think it's going to be classic Lamar here.
Probably should unmute myself. Next, over under receptions for Jalen Waddle versus the Panthers. 6.5 is the number. What are you taking, Ricky?
I'm going to go with the under. I feel like this is more of a Mike Gesicki kind of game for the Dolphins. And it's not just because I like having Mike Gesicki on my fantasy team and he's going to get me some more points. I know the Dolphins don't have a lot to necessarily work with in this offense in terms of passing options, but you look at Waddle over the last couple of weeks, he's had 8 catches against the Jets, 4 against the Ravens, 8 against the Texans, 4 against the Bills. You're either going to get 8 or you're going to get 4. So 6, this is actually a great number, but I'm going to go slightly under. Maybe he gets 5.
I'm going to go slightly over just because I think the Tua factor, I think right now it's probably his number one guy that he trusts out there. I think Gesicki's been a little more inconsistent lately after that 0 he had against Baltimore. So I think Waddle's just going to be continued to be force-fed in this one, so I got to go with the over.
All right, next, keeping with the same game, actually, total points. It worked out pretty well, huh? Over under total points in that Panthers Dolphins matchup, 43.5 is the number. What say you, Ricky?
Gonna go the under. I think this looks like a 2017, 21-20 kind of game. Both these offenses can turn the football over, so both are hard to trust. Some of these defenses, Brian Flores' defense has played better. You still need to see more out of the Panthers' defense in terms of consistency, but I don't think this could be a shootout. I think both these teams kind of can get on great drives and then stumble. And I think the kicking game could be more involved. Zane Gonzalez and Jason Sanders are both really good kickers. So there's not going to be a tendency to go for on fourth down. So it's going to be the under.
I'm going to go over just because I could see there being a boost, maybe with a defensive touchdown on either side. And I think both these offenses are pretty well balanced. So I think you can see some defensive breakdowns as well, some broken down coverages. So I'm actually going to go with the over here.
All right. So next we have Miles Sanders versus Saquon Barkley, NFC East matchup there, Giants and Eagles. Who you taking? And remember Ricky's point earlier, they actually decided or realized that they can run the ball in Philadelphia. They have been doing it a little bit more lately. Miles Sanders, Saquon Barkley, who has more rushing yards this Sunday?
Gonna go with Miles Sanders because it's just tough to trust Saquon Barkley to finish a game. I mean, he's on the injury report again with an ankle injury. He is going to play today, but it's just hard to see him be on the field for all 60 minutes. And Devontae Booker has actually done a decent job. Maybe Joe Judge wants to not split the carries, but give Booker some run too. And with no Jordan Howard for the Eagles, it kind of takes away another option away from Miles Sanders to not get the bulk of the work. But hey, it's Miles Sanders in Philly. If you've had him in fantasy, you understand the frustrations. But I'll take Sanders over Saquon.
I'm going to go with Sanders as well. I just think there's a couple more chances for him to hit home runs here in this game. I do think that you look at Barkley, he's not hit enough of bigger runs, explosive runs this year. And the fact they're kind of splitting his time, I think that's going to help Sanders' case today. So, yeah, I think Miles Sanders.
All right, and next, I believe we have a next. Oh, yes, we do, but it's very small. So hold on, let me pull it up for the viewing public here, but I will say it out loud anyways. Total points scored: Rams Packers over under 49.5.
I'm gonna go under, and I wish this game was like 20 degrees instead of 35. It's not even frozen in the frozen tundra in late November, which is a little weird. But I think the Rams have an offensive identity crisis that they still won't figure out over the bye. And you look at the Packers, we'll see if Aaron Jones plays today. If he does not, it sounds like he's not because they have the bye week next week. Maybe they want to give Jones a couple of weeks. So is Aaron Rodgers going to throw for 4 touchdowns and no picks against a Rams defensive line that's going to get after him a little bit? So I could see his game kind of being ugly, which, believe it or not, I believe would benefit the Packers more than the Rams. But I would go with the under.
I'm also going to go under. I think with Green Bay, not just Aaron Jones' situation, but Elton Jenkins is now out. Bakhtiari's still not back up front. So I think Aaron Rodgers, like you said, he's going to be running around a little bit too much today on that toe. And I don't know if Matthew Stafford's quite back yet. I think even with the bye week, there's going to be some kinks there to work through. So I'll go with the under.
All right, and then that does it for this week's pickup props. You can, if you want to participate, and obviously you can see on the screen, there was options for you to enter your phone number, sign up, and have all that fun. So definitely go to playpickup.com and check that all out because it's a lot of fun. And you can win cool prizes, so why the hell not? So obviously that means we are now down to the nuts and bolts of it. We talked about a lot of these teams. We've talked a lot about some of these players. Now it's time for us to pick these games, and we have quite a number of good ones, like I said, relative certainly to last week's, where I felt like there was a lot of duds and just a few gems there. So yeah, as we do every single week, we're just going to go right down the line. We're going to give our picks and predictions, and yeah, we're going to have some fun with it. So we started this show talking about the Bengals and Steelers to quite a bit of an extent. We got them at 1:00. Pittsburgh traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. I'll start with you, Ricky, and let me know who do you got?
It's just really tough to see. Trying to look into this. When's the last time the Bengals actually swept the Steelers in a season matchup? I know Ian and I were big on Cincinnati winning that first game, but like I said, was impressed that Pittsburgh hung around in LA without a lot of their defensive guys. Minka Fitzpatrick is back today, which should help in that secondary, and I think they can force Burrow to a mistake or two. I'm going to go Pittsburgh in a close game, probably by a field goal.
I was going to kind of go Pittsburgh all the way, but like you said, it would be weird to see them sweep the Steelers, but 2021's been weird, so I'm going to kind of just carry off of that. I think I could also see Bengals hitting on a lot more explosive plays today. Maybe the Steelers starting off a little bit slow, trying to lean more on Najee Harris. So going to go with Cincinnati. Don't really feel maybe that confident in it, but 2021's been weird, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and look, I'm going with Cincinnati too. I think ultimately playing at home and given the Steelers' injury issues that they're dealing with, I think Cincinnati's just going to be able to get this one out. So next 1:00 game, it could very well be a Sunday night game. You got Tampa Bay at the surging Indianapolis Colts. I do think Tampa. I think Tampa wins this one again. I think I put a lot of faith in what a Tom Brady offense has done to the Colts in the past, no matter really just it's spanned over the last decade or so. So there's a lot of evidence to suggest that that's not going to change anytime soon. I do think this is a game that, may be tight for a while, but I think ultimately Tampa runs away with it and finally picks up a pretty big win on the road, something they haven't really done yet this season.
I'm going to go with the Buccaneers largely because when you play against Tampa, usually you can't run the football, and the Colts offense runs primarily on giving the ball to Jonathan Taylor. Maybe they use more screens today and try to get him out in the passing game. But if you're making Indianapolis one-dimensional, making Carson Wentz one-dimensional, as bad as Tampa's secondary can be at times, I think Tom Brady finds a way to win the game late, so Bucs win on the road.
I'm going to go Bucks as well. You mentioned the great run defense. I think this is a secondary that's actually starting to play a little bit better. Sean Murphy-Bunting being back last week, I think you could kind of see them get a little more comfortable across the board. So I think this will be a game where Wentz is maybe going to have a couple of bad interceptions that we've seen in the past. So I got to go with Tampa.
Yeah, the Bucs secondary is the equivalent of what the Titans have working at the wide receiver position right now, and it was for a good number of weeks because they were just dealing with so many injuries at that position. So definitely just getting those bodies back are going to help quite a bit. So next we have Miami, kind of on a little bit of a winning streak here. Things are vibing down in Miami. They got Carolina coming in, Cam Newton, a pretty good defense, pretty decent offense. I'm going to take Carolina on the road here. Again, I think we're all kind of on the sell side when it comes to Carolina ultimately being a playoff team, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I just forgot what you guys answered just a few minutes ago, but I still think that they win this game against Miami, who, yeah, I mean, they've picked up a couple wins in a row, but I don't think anyone's sitting here saying, oh, I think Miami's back. I don't think so. So give me Carolina.
I don't think Miami's back necessarily, but as I said a week or so ago, 7-7 going into their bye week is very realistic with the schedule they have. With today, the Giants and the Jets, Tua's at least starting to show some consistency with completing passes, albeit it was the Jets last week, but Tua had a really good completion percentage. You're seeing Myles Gaskin get used more. And this Carolina defense didn't even get a pick off Taylor Heineke last week. It's just hard to trust them against Tua, who is still better than Heineke when healthy, and he's finally healthy this time. This game is in Miami, so now you have also the Florida weather involved. I'm going to take the Dolphins at home.
I'm going to go Panthers just because I think they're a little bit more of a complete team. I think they can win in a little more multiple ways than Miami offensively. I mean, not just McCaffrey, but I think the weapons they have, I think it's a little bit more options that they have than Miami at receiver. And even though I think Miami's been on this winning streak, their defense still has had some questionable coverage breaks last week. Elijah Moore had a great game. So just a better team to me overall than Miami right now. So I got to go with the Panthers.
And just on a side note, and this has kind of popped up throughout our conversation today, maybe Washington's finally starting to play like the team we thought they were going to play like heading into this season. Because, I mean, it's been a few weeks now where they've strung together some pretty impressive football. and we're sitting here still treating them sort of like the team that started the season, where it's like, oh, it's just the same old Washington football team. No, maybe we have to think about that. Maybe we have to think about Washington as maybe a team that's actually starting to play to our expectations, as opposed to playing below them as they have been for much of the season. And who knows? Maybe that Tampa Bay win over the Buccaneers was something that brought them a little bit closer to that. So next, though, we do have one of the bigger games on the slate for many reasons. It's the Titans heading to New England to take on the Patriots. Ricky and I were talking about this prior to getting on the air. Sometimes it kind of feels like it's almost too good to be true for the Patriots when it comes to how this game is setting up, which sometimes leads to a classic letdown. It's just how the way sports work. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think this New England team, there's no coach I trust in football more than Bill Belichick to keep a team focused and on the right track. And I think this Patriots team is a prime example of a team that has gradually grown each and every week. Doesn't mean that they've been mistake-free or flawless or anything like that. They've progressed each and every week, and I think that's a great sign for this team, certainly down the stretch and moving forward. They're playing great defense right now. You're playing against a shorthanded Tennessee team. Give me the Patriots at home to potentially take over the top seed in the conference if Cleveland also beats Baltimore. So
I do trust Belichick in this game, but if there's one coach that has given him fits over the last couple of years, it is Rabel. When you go back to the playoff game a couple of years ago, and you go back, I think, to the regular season game in Tennessee where the Titans absolutely smoked them, Rabel kind of has that. He's on the Belichick tree, but he's not on the Belichick tree, so he kind of doesn't fall into that whole trap of not being able to beat Belichick. If Rabel's going to have to out-scheme things to win today, Tennessee just doesn't have enough. If they had A.J. Brown healthy, especially after that embarrassing performance against the Texans, you give him more of a shot. I think Rabel's able to keep it close, but I think New England finds a way to get the win and set up a mega showdown in Buffalo next Monday.
I'm going to go Patriots. I really don't think it's close. Sometimes I think just the attrition catches up to you, and the Titans are pretty close to setting a record as far as how many players they've used on the active roster this year. I just think there's too much to overcome, and I think in these situations when Belichick's facing teams like this, we see the blowouts like we saw, like 54-13, something like that against the Jets earlier this season. I don't know if they'll score as much points as they did that day, but I think it'll be the same kind of feeling.
I think I'd be happy no matter what if they won, but a nice 54-13 win would also feel pretty good. So next, you have the Giants hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. We're all pretty high on the Eagles and think they're playing some pretty good football, and I don't think it's going to stop here against the Giants. So on the road, give me the Eagles.
You just wish the Giants receiving core is all healthy at the same time, and I just feel like it's never going to be that way this year. Shepard's still hurt.
You also
Tony
wish you had someone other than Daniel Jones.
Yeah, Tony, that too. But Matt Corral, anybody? No, but Tony was Tony's still banged up. Galladay's just coming back. Shepard's hurt. I just don't think they have enough in this game to keep it close. And I know maybe Freddie Kitchens could dial some new things, but Philly is just rolling too much right now and run all over the Giants when they play them. So give me Philly.
Yeah, Eagles are rolling. Giants, I don't think just have the offensive issues. This defense isn't anywhere close to where they were last year, especially on the back end. Bradbury went from having a great resurgence to kind of just being where he was a couple of years ago. So much working against the Giants. I got to go with Philly.
Next, we have the Falcons heading to Jacksonville and potentially one of two snooze fest games to end the 1 o'clock slate. I got Atlanta on the road just because I think we're going to get a good offensive game from them this week. I don't know. I wouldn't bet any money on it. And it wouldn't surprise me if we got the exact opposite. But against Jacksonville, I'll give Atlanta the slight edge.
Cordell Patterson is expected to be back today.
That's huge.
That's at least a good thing. I still feel awful for Matt Ryan, but if not now, when? Jacksonville's due for a win. The Falcons' defense is not any good. Jacksonville's at home. Give me Trevor Lawrence.
Brayden, what do you think? You going Jacksonville too?
I am, yeah. I don't think either of these offenses can score. I think Jacksonville's just a little bit better defense. So maybe in a field goal game, Younghoe maybe misses one just wide right at the end in a low scoring one. So I'll go with the Jags.
Oh, that's such a way the Falcons would lose too. Yeah, that's going to happen. So the reason I didn't say this was the slam dunk snooze fest game of the week is because next we have the Jets at the Texans, and I took the Texans because at the very least, Tyrod Taylor's playing some pretty good football for the Texans, and all things considered, that's probably the biggest positive for either of these two teams right now. So, and at home, give me the Houston Texans to win. Again, a snooze fest.
In the old flip the channel special,
Yep.
I'm going to go with the Jets actually on the road. Zach Wilson's back, and I think Zach Wilson has something to prove because he's watched Mike White succeed, Josh Johnson succeed, Joe Flacco even succeed. He needs to step it up, and this is the kind of opponent you can do that against. The Jets' run defense stinks, but the Texans don't have a running back. They waive Phillip Lindsay. It's just David Johnson and what's left of Rex Burkhead. And the Texans only got 22 points off 4 turnovers last week. I think the Jets can keep it under 4 turnovers. So largely just maybe Elijah Moore has a huge game again and he makes a big play. I'll take the Jets, but it's like one of those flip a coin kind of ball games.
Yeah, I'm taking the Jets. I really don't have a lot of good reasons other than I think just Houston. I don't believe they can win 2 games in a row. Maybe kind of exceeded all their energy against a division rival on the road. So for that reason, I'm going to go with the Jets.
Next, we have Denver hosting the Los Angeles Chargers in an AFC West battle. We could have probably included the Chargers in our buy or sell, although I do believe, I think we all feel like the Chargers are a step above some of these other middle of the pack 5-loss, 6-loss teams. So that's why I didn't include them. But this doesn't make this matchup against Denver easy. Obviously, going on the road, 2 Mile High, divisional matchup, it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, who or where you're at as a team. Divisional matchups are always going to be tough no matter what. I do think the Chargers are going to win this game on the road, and it's going to be a pretty big win for them. Who, look, they're trying to keep pace with Kansas City, and they got another pretty big matchup coming up in just a couple weeks. So, and that could have a lot of division implications on it. So, give me the Chargers in this one.
This is a sneaky tough game, and we could throw the Chargers in here. We could throw Denver in here. I mean, Denver's a team that's kind of a sneaky group of sneaky team, and I think Denver desperately needs this game. Fangio desperately needs this game. He's facing coach and Brandon Staley, who is on his, and they have Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, who can run on a really bad defense. Chargers are awful against the run, and I know that was either a year or 2 ago that LA's lost some weird games in Denver. They just seem to find ways to lose in this environment. But I just reading Denver doesn't have both their tackles. Joey Bosa is on one side for the Chargers. I think the Chargers win, but I would not be shocked if Denver pulled one out at home.
Yeah, I'm going to go Chargers. The thing I kind of keep going back to with Denver is I don't know how much focus they are on the rest of this season. I think they're really looking towards who's going to be the quarterback of the future with all this offensive talent around them. So maybe they'll surprise me and play spoiler today, but I just think this isn't the Chargers of old that kind of blows these kind of games right now. So got to go with LA.
Next, we have potentially that quarterback of the future for the Denver Broncos, Aaron Rodgers, and the Green Bay Packers hosting the Los Angeles Rams. This is Green Bay is tough to figure out because at times I feel like they're the best team in the NFC. And then I feel like, I don't know. I mean, again, I don't know. It's confusing because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I like Green Bay. I think big picture, rest of the season going into the playoffs. But I look at this game and I say, this is, and this is more of almost a sort of a criticism of the Rams. They're a regular season team, in my opinion. I think they're a flash and pizzazz. I don't think there's a lot of substance behind a lot of the stuff of what they do. I think they're very talented, but I don't think that talent necessarily is going to come together as a quote unquote team, certainly one that wins a Super Bowl. But they're certainly a team that can win regular season games like this. And I think, I don't know how much of that injury is affecting Aaron Rodgers. I tend to believe it isn't, because I think it's just been kind of, inflated quite a bit. He does tend to do that sometimes. He's kind of got that little LeBron thing in him where he's like, hey, if I get an ailment, I'll not going to miss an opportunity to talk it up or show off your foot. But I think in this case, you're going to get a pretty entertaining game. But these are the type of games the Rams win because, well, they're the Rams. They're not, in my opinion, a Super Bowl threat. They're more of we're going to show off in the regular season. And this is one of those instances. So give me the Rams on the road.
Now, it is a long season, but Adam Schefter retweeted something about 10 minutes ago. Diana Rossini, I guess she's covering the game for ESPN, said Matthew Stafford's all banged up and dealing with a sore ankle, pain in his throwing arm or elbow, and a back pain that's been described as chronic. Are coming off the bye. So if Matt Stafford's dealing with this and he's not still that healthy at all, and this Packers defense, I know they struggled last week, but they're much better than what they played a week ago. I know the Packers offensive line is dealing with issues too. It comes down to which team can play in cold elements. And until Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel actually get carries, which they didn't 2 weeks ago, at least A.J. Dillon and or Aaron Jones get the ball today. And I think the Packers know how to play in the cold. Stafford's played in Detroit, and he's used to playing in Lambeau, but not a lot of these other guys are. Give me the Packers with the elements today.
Yeah, I didn't really know who to pick, but I kind of agree with a lot of what Ian said. I think this is a game that usually the Rams and McVay, I think, just find a way to kind of scheme up surprises that the opponent's not ready for. And this was a Packers defense that kind of fell back to earth last week against Cousins. So I am going to go with the Rams just because I think there is a little bit more attrition, despite maybe Stafford's ailments, maybe a little more attrition on Green Bay's side right now. So just this kind of game that the Rams just find ways to win typically.
All right, next we have San Francisco hosting the team that beat Green Bay last week, the Minnesota Vikings. This was a very intriguing matchup as well. I kind of went back and forth. Ultimately, I did side with the home team, and I went with the 49ers. And what I think may end up being the most entertaining back and forth game. It has that potential, but it also has that potential to be like 17-10 and be an absolute snooze fest. So give me San Francisco at home, but I kind of feel like this might be a flip of a coin as well.
Definitely a flip the coin game. Probably will come down to who gets the ball last. But unlike the playoff game a couple of years ago, Jimmy Garoppolo's gonna have to throw the ball more than 10 times. 50. I feel like it was a really low number. Yeah, I don't remember the number. Minnesota's gonna make them throw the football, I think, a little bit more today. Give me the Vikings late and another close last possession win.
In a flip the coin kind of game, I think I have to go with the team that I trust more. And right now, that's Minnesota. I think I just trust their offense more overall, not just at quarterback. But Brandon Ayuk's always due for a couple of drops in the running back carousel. I just don't know what you're going to get week to week from that. So I got to go with the Vikings.
All right. Last but not least, Sunday Night Football. We have the Ravens hosting the Browns. At this point in the day, the Ravens will know if they win or lose whether or not they will have the number one seed, or at least be in possession of the number one seed. If Tennessee loses, New England wins, they have an opportunity to leapfrog New England, and there's a lot of intriguing storylines here. I do think they win tonight because I just don't trust Cleveland right now. I'd love to pick against Baltimore because it's not like I have a lot of trust in them necessarily. I just trust Cleveland less. And again, when it comes down to something like this, I always try to side with the team that's at home. And in this case, it's Baltimore. So Ravens win on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, Cleveland's defense last year gave up a lot of points to Lamar Jackson. So while we look at their offense and they are going to get better with Conklin back and Kareem Hunt back, their defense is a mess. I mean, they were fortunate they played against Tim Boyle last week in his 80 yards passing. Like I said, I don't think Baker Mayfield finishes this game tonight. And I don't think it's even because of injury. I think Baltimore's going to get far ahead. And if I'm Stefanski, like I said earlier, I would put Keenum in the game. But I think Baltimore wins it and wins it going away.
I feel like this is kind of the classic Cleveland-Baltimore game we've seen over the last couple of years. It's going to be close early. But then it's just classic Lamar, not necessarily coming out of the locker room this time, but still pulling off a magic play at the end. So I think Baltimore will pull away from a close one late, and they get the home win tonight.
And just like that, folks, We've picked all the games, so you don't even have to watch them this afternoon. No, and for the sake of timing and the perfection of having this at exactly an hour, we're going to say goodbye. We're going to say thank you for tuning in. Give us a follow on Twitter at FullPressNFL, and be sure to tune in next week when we pick everything as well. Have a great day. Enjoy your Sunday.